When Ibrahim Traoré shows up at a celebrity charity concert, a popular singer decides to mock him in front of the audience. The crowd bursts into laughter until something completely unexpected happens. Holding the microphone with steady hands and quiet confidence, Traoré walks on stage. His words and calm presence do not just silence the room, they leave the entire internet speechless. What follows is a powerful reminder that real respect often comes from surprising moments. It all began on a quiet Tuesday morning in Ouagadougou. President Ibrahim Traoré was seated in his simple office, reviewing a report on education for children forced from their homes. His phone vibrated with a message from his assistant. "You have been invited to the Africa Eat charity concert," a celebrity-filled event set for Friday night in Lagos. He raised an eyebrow. A star-studded concert was not typically where he spent his evenings, but the funds were going toward refugees in West Africa, a cause he deeply cared about. After a moment, he nodded. "Let them know I will be there." By Thursday night, he was on a regular commercial flight. No private jet, no media spotlight. Just Ibrahim Traoré, dressed in a simple suit, sitting among everyday travelers. No one at the airport gave him a second glance. No big headlines followed his arrival in Lagos. But for the concert organizers, it was a surprise. He had actually agreed to come, and not everyone was pleased. Among the performers was Dio Blaze, a huge Afrobeat star with a massive online following. To him, the president's presence felt like a publicity move. He leaned toward his manager backstage and said with a grin, "Let's give the president a moment he won't forget. Let's mess with him a bit." What none of them realized was just how unforgettable the night would become. The concert venue sparkled with lights and movement. Celebrities, influencers, dancers, and cameramen created a storm of energy. More than 30,000 fans filled the space, cheering as one hit after another shook the hall. President Traoré sat quietly in the front row, surrounded by plainclothes security. He clapped politely, smiled modestly, and stayed low-key. A few people whispered, pointing him out, puzzled by the absence of presidential formality. Why would a national leader show up like this? Then came Dio Blaze's moment. The crowd erupted as he hit the stage, stylish and confident, sunglasses flashing. After performing 3 songs, he took a break, wiped sweat off his brow, and smirked. "We've got a VIP guest here tonight," Dio announced. The cameras zoomed in on Traoré's face. Everyone turned. "Give it up for the president of—" "Wait, what's the country again?" "Burkina Faso." Laughter exploded across the room. Traoré offered a faint smile. Still, calm, composed. "No offense, Your Excellency," Dio continued. "You're doing fine. I mean, real presidents don't fly economy class, right?" The crowd roared again, but this time some looked uncomfortable. Still, Ibrahim did not react. Slowly, he stood. And then something no one could have predicted happened. He began walking toward the stage. The room fell silent. Even Dio Blaze looked unsure, stepping back slightly. Was the president really approaching him, Ibrahim Traoré? Moved with quiet determination. No anger, no show of emotion. Just steady, like someone who had weathered worse and now faced only light rain. The audience froze. An event organizer rushed over, whispering, "Mr. President, you don't have to." He gently placed a hand on the person's shoulder and replied softly, "It's all right." As he stepped onto the stage, Dio hesitated, unsure if this was serious or just part of the show. Still, he handed over the microphone. Traoré accepted it, turned to the audience, and began to speak. His voice was calm, low, but clear, each word cutting through the noise with weight. "I did not come here for applause," he said, "or to be treated differently. I came because across this continent, children are going hungry, families are fleeing conflict, and this stage, this music, can unite people, not divide them." The crowd went completely still. Cameras zoomed in. Phones lit up. Some in the audience were already wiping away tears, and he had not even begun the real story. "Let me tell you something," he continued, lifting the mic again, "about a young boy I met just 3 days ago in a refugee camp." Traoré's voice was steady as he shared his story. 3 days back, I visited a refugee camp on the border between Burkina Faso and Mali. That is where I met Mahamudo. He was about 10 years old. A soft gasp moved through the audience. The lights dimmed slightly. Behind him, a massive screen displayed a photo. A small boy in worn-out clothes, his feet dusty, his eyes tired. He was holding a stick like it was a toy sword. No shoes, no family. He looked at me and said, "President, I want to be a doctor. I want to fix people like they fix bicycles." There was a soft chuckle mixed with sniffles from the crowd. But he had no school, no meals, just dreams, Traoré said. I sat with him on the dry ground and asked him what keeps him going. He paused. He said, "Because someone has to care." The stadium was silent. "That is why I am here. Not for jokes, not for praise, but because of one barefoot child who still believes someone cares. And if I can stand on this stage, then so can he. One day he will." People began shifting in their seats, celebrities included. Something had shifted in the room. Dio Blaze now stood quietly at the edge of the platform, no longer glowing in the spotlight. He looked at Traoré, lost for words. The crowd's gaze had changed. They no longer admired Dio. They waited for him to make things right. Traoré turned slightly in his direction. "You have talent," he said softly. "Your voice reaches millions. Use it to uplift those who are struggling, not to laugh at them." He was not angry. He was not bitter. He was simply honest. Dio's throat tightened. Something inside him gave way. He lowered his microphone, stepped back, and slipped behind the curtain. No music followed. No flashing lights. Only quiet. Traoré handed the mic back to the crew and began walking off stage. But before he reached the steps, something unexpected happened. People stood. One row, then another, until the whole stadium was on its feet. Applause thundered. Tears flowed. They chanted his name. "Traoré! Traoré! Traoré!" Phones lit up the venue. Live streams spread across social media. Online platforms were flooded instantly, but Ibrahim did not wave. He did not smile. He simply bowed his head. Because to him, this was never a show. It was a purpose. And it was far from finished. That night, Traoré declined the black SUV arranged for him. "No, thank you," he said. "I will ride with the medical staff." He sat quietly in the back of a dusty white van, joined by two young doctors who worked in refugee camps. The road was rough, and the heat was intense, but they spoke deeply about healing wounds medicine could not touch. Meanwhile, back at the venue, the digital world was on fire. Clips of Traoré's words exploded on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. Every platform lit up with hashtags like "Respect Traoré." The voice of Africa had spoken, and Mahamudu's dream had been heard. Celebrities who once mocked Traoré now posted apologies. Influencers reacted with tears in their videos. As for Dio Blaze, he uploaded a single story. "I was wrong. I have never felt smaller. Forgive me." But Traoré was not concerned with online reactions. He was already back on the move, heading to another village, another camp, another overlooked place. He understood something important. Real change does not happen under bright lights. It happens quietly, in the dust, in places no camera reaches. And the week had just started. By Saturday morning, Traoré was near Burkina Faso's border, visiting a small hospital in a rural town. The building had peeling walls and only one working fan. The air smelled like dust and medicine. He greeted each nurse by name. A little girl, about 5 years old, lay on a bed, struggling to breathe. Her name was Isatu. She had malaria, but there were no IV drips left. The nurse leaned in and said, "We ran out yesterday. The supply truck is stuck in the mud, 30 kilometers from here." Without hesitation, Traoré rolled up his sleeves, grabbed a shovel, and joined local workers to help dig out the vehicle. There were no cameras, no reporters, just hard work, mud, and focus. After 4 hours, the truck arrived and IV bags were delivered. Isatu's breathing began to settle. What no one realized was that a young local boy had filmed everything. He posted it on YouTube with the title, "Our President Digs for Children. What does yours do?" It spread quickly. Soon, journalists, influencers, and even global leaders were asking, "Who is this man?" But Traoré still had not looked at his phone. He was busy, sitting next to Isatu, humming a lullaby his mother used to sing to him. That evening, a call came in to the presidential office in Ouagadougou. It was from the United Nations. We would like to nominate President Ibrahim Traoré for the Global Humanitarian Peace Award. His assistant hesitated. He is not in the office. Where is he? They asked. The assistant glanced at the GPS tracker. The blinking dot was deep in a forest village. He is building a classroom, the assistant said. While international headlines buzzed with coverage and debates, Traoré was in a place called Kuruma, laying bricks with volunteers. The old school had collapsed during the rainy season. Children peeked from behind trees, surprised to see a president carrying cement or mixing mud. One boy walked up and asked, "Are you the real president?" Traoré smiled and replied, "If I wasn't, would I have these blisters?" The boy laughed. By now, news networks across Africa were following his journey, but he did not give any speeches. He just kept working. Because to him, leadership meant being present, especially when no one was watching. Then the rain started, heavy, cold, pouring down across the village like a river. Still, Traoré did not stop. He kept building. The site flooded, but no one left. He stood in the mud, drenched from head to toe, helping install the final classroom door. No umbrella, no security. Just him, soaked, cold, but steady. The villagers came forward with towels and warm porridge, urging him to rest. He only paused when an elderly woman gently pulled his hand and whispered, "You remind me of my son. He died in the war." He never gave up either. She wrapped a scarf around his shoulders and cried quietly. Her granddaughter cried too. By morning, the rain had cleared, and the school stood tall. Children danced in the wet earth. Teachers embraced. Traoré lifted the chalkboard with his own hands. Someone painted words on the classroom wall, built by the people, with their president. As the sun came up, a drone from a Pan-African news channel hovered overhead, recording everything. That footage reached millions within hours. The world was no longer asking who Ibrahim Traoré was. Now they were asking, why are not more leaders like him? Meanwhile, in Lagos, Dio Blaze was packing his bags. He needed to see the president for himself. He had not slept. He had watched every video of Traoré, from the concert, to the hospital, to the school. Each time he wiped tears from his eyes. Tears of regret, of realization. I made fun of this man, he whispered to his reflection. And he built a school while standing in the rain. The next day, Dio booked a flight to Ouagadougou. No team, no manager, no security. Just a backpack, a notebook, and his guilt. He arrived quietly, without media attention. No one even noticed. He asked around, trying to find out where Traoré had gone. A woman at the market pointed down a dusty path. Try the village of Sapan, she said. People say he's visiting. The widow's there. Dio climbed onto a crowded bus, bouncing over red clay roads. As he traveled, he scribbled into his notebook, I once filled arenas with sound. But this man brings light into homes left in silence. By the time Dio reached Sapan, the sun was starting to set. Under a tree, surrounded by elderly women with lined faces, sat President Ibrahim Traoré, working with his hands to fix a broken water pump. Dio stopped. He could not move. His chest felt heavy in a way he had never known. The sky turned orange. The air was thick with the smell of earth and firewood. One of the widows, Mama Salamata, sat beside Traoré and began to hum. Her voice was gentle but full of pain. As Dio stepped forward, she looked at him with teary eyes. I lost my husband to bandits, she said. He was protecting our crops. They shot him while I was making dinner. Traoré listened closely, head lowered. For years, no one came. No leader ever visited. No one asked how we were. But you sat on our broken bench, and you asked. I will never forget that. Dio's throat tightened. He knelt down in the dirt beside the president. Mr. President, he said softly, I came to say I am sorry. I judged you without knowing who you are. Traoré looked at him. Then he glanced around at the women seated nearby. Then listen now, he said. Not to me, to them. That night, under a clear sky, the widows sang. Songs of grief, of love, of children lost and crops left to die. And Dio Blaze, the man known around the world for his voice, just sat quietly, listening. Tears ran down his face. This, he realized, was the sound that truly mattered. The stars hung bright over Sapan. Traoré stood beside a small fire, hands still marked from the day's labor, eyes tired but calm. Dio remained seated, humbled and changed. Villagers gathered around, trading stories, sipping tea, sharing quiet moments. Then, a boy no older than 7 gently tapped Dio on the arm. "Will you sing for us?" he asked. Dio hesitated. Traoré rested, a hand on his shoulder. He had seen something honest in him, something real, something finally ready. Dio took a slow breath and stood. He did not sing one of his popular songs. Instead, he sang a lullaby his grandmother used to sing to him. His voice trembled with each line. The crowd closed their eyes. Some quietly joined in, others wiped away tears. When the final note ended, silence wrapped around them like a warm cloth. Traoré stepped forward. "Tomorrow we build a well here," he said calmly. "No woman here should walk miles for water again." The crowd cheered. Then, Dio leaned in and said, "Let me pay for everything." A wave of surprise passed through the group. Traoré smiled, not because of the offer, but because he saw someone's heart truly shift. That night, 2 men, one a leader, one an artist, sat together beneath the stars. And something more lasting than fame was born. By Tuesday morning, news had spread throughout Burkina Faso. Children stood at the edges of villages, hoping to see the man who acted not like a politician, but like a father, a brother, a builder. In a quiet village called Zunuogo, a girl named Mariam stood outside the ruins of her classroom. Her school uniform was torn. She clutched a faded notebook, its pages as thin as tissue. Traoré saw her right away. "Why are you not in school, little one?" he asked gently. She looked down. "Our school collapsed last year," she said softly. "We just sit on stones and wait for the rain to stop." Traoré knelt beside her and picked up her notebook. On the last page was a drawing of a building with children inside and a flag above. "This is my dream school," Mariam said. Her voice cracked, and Dio felt his chest tighten. That afternoon, with no cameras and no press, Traoré and Dio gathered the villagers. By sunset, shovels were in their hands, and the first bricks of Mariam's dream were being laid. She hugged Traoré tightly. "Will you come when it's done?" she asked. He smiled. "I will come before it is finished, and I will sit next to you in the front row." That night, while villagers danced around a fire, Dio noticed something. A scar on Traoré's wrist. "What happened there?" he asked quietly. Traoré paused, then replied, "When I was 10, our village was attacked. My brother hid me in a grain bin and ran out to draw the fighters away. He never returned." The firelight flickered in Dio's eyes. "You were just a boy." "Yes," Traoré said. "But I remember thinking, if I make it, I will protect others like he protected me." The space between them fell silent. Dio looked down, eyes damp. "Everything I've done, it was for praise. But your life is pain carried with purpose." Traoré stared into the flames. "No one chooses their scars," he said. "But we do choose what they mean." Nearby, children had fallen asleep. Their bowls sat empty. Quietly, Traoré stood and began to serve food from a pot he had asked to be made earlier. He said nothing. He did not need to. Far away, in cities, full of lights and tall buildings, millions watched online, crying not out of pity, but because they saw something real. A leader with a scar and a heart. As the first light touched the rooftops, a soldier approached Traoré with a sealed envelope. The handwriting was shaky, but familiar. It was from his mother. He opened it carefully. "My son, the world now sees what I always knew. When your father died, I was afraid you would live in anger. But instead you became kind. That is your true strength. I miss you. Please eat well. Your brother would be proud." Mama Traoré folded the letter gently and pressed it against his chest. He remained quiet for a long time. Dio softly asked, "Do you miss home?" Traoré responded in a low voice, "I carry it with me wherever I go." Then something unexpected happened. One of the widows who had come from Sapan began humming. Soon others joined in. It was a lullaby, the same one his mother used to sing. As the melody filled the air, Traoré closed his eyes. In that moment, he was not just a president. He was a son, a brother, a friend, a man whose connection to his people was deeper than any title. And every phone recording that morning captured not just a person, but a presence. By Wednesday evening, the convoy was back in the capital. The concert that had started it all was set to resume, this time as a second charity event, arranged at the last minute, and now called Voices of Change. The stadium was full. Phones were raised, but this time people were not waiting for music. They were waiting for him. Backstage, the same celebrity who had mocked Traoré days before stood waiting, uneasy. When Traoré entered, he stood up. "I was wrong," the singer said softly, eyes lowered. Traoré placed a hand on his shoulder. "You gave me a stage." That was enough. Then the president stepped forward. No security, no stage barrier, just a microphone. The crowd fell silent. He paused, looked across the sea of faces and said, "Do not cheer for me. Cheer for the children learning without roofs, for the mothers who still sing through pain, for the young people who believe they can shape tomorrow." No one applauded, no one moved. Hearts were simply too full. Within hours, his speech had gone viral across every major platform. But it was not only his words that spread. It was the moment he wiped away tears as he spoke of his brother. "He gave his life so I could live. Now I live to bring others hope." And then came the part that echoed loudest. When he named the orphans, the farmers, the teachers, the soldiers, the dreamers, those he had met just days before, and then he said, "I am not your hero. I am your echo. I am the voice you thought no one heard." The world paused. Influencers shared it. News stations translated it. School children performed it in class. Even the singer who once mocked him posted the clip with one caption, "I thought I was the star. Turns out I was in the crowd when history spoke." In just 1 week, Traoré became more than a president. He became a symbol, not by power, but by purpose. That night, the skies opened. Rain fell heavily on Ouagadougou, as if the heavens themselves wept. Still, thousands stood outside the palace, quiet and drenched, waiting. Traoré stepped out into the rain. No umbrella, just a blanket around his shoulders. And beside him, a girl. It was Mariam, the girl with the torn notebook. She held a microphone with shaking hands. "He said he would sit in class with me," she said, "but he gave us something even bigger. He gave us hope again." The crowd began to clap, first gently, then louder, then with full force. Rain and tears mixed on every face. And right there, with the world watching, Ibrahim Traoré whispered, "A promise. As long as I live, I will never let your dreams get soaked again." The screen fades to black. Dear viewers, if this story reached you, if your heart felt what they felt, if you held back tears, if even for a second you believed, again, then do not just scroll. Tap that like button, subscribe to this channel, and most importantly, leave a comment below. What would you say if you had a microphone like Traoré? Let us flood this comment section with respect. Let us help his voice reach further, because sometimes it is the quietest man who brings the biggest change. Thank you for watching.